She wasn't your piece. She was your mirror. Aristotle didn't worship women. He decoded them. You didn't love her. You loved how she made you feel. That's not connection. That's dependency. The fantasy you inherited was a trap from the beginning. They lied to you, not to hurt you, but to keep you tame. They gave you stories, sweet ones, clean ones, ones where the woman was always soft, kind, healing, the angel who shows up just when life gets hard, the reward for being a good man. You were told she'd complete you, that once you had her, really had her, then you'd feel worthy, then you'd feel peace, then the rest of your life would finally begin. But that fantasy, it wasn't love, it was conditioning. You weren't raised to see her clearly. You were trained to worship her blindly. Movies, song, school, even your own family, all echoed the same myth. Be strong, be soft, be reliable, and someday she'll save you. Someday she'll make it all make sense. And so you believed it. You waited for her. You looked for her. And when you found someone who made you feel something close to that fantasy, you gave her everything, not because of who she was, but because of what she represented. Your peace, your cure, your meaning. But here's the truth you weren't allowed to say out loud. You weren't chasing her. You were chasing the version of you that felt whole around her. That man who felt confident in her gaze, who felt calm in her arms, who felt chosen, seen, safe. She didn't give you that wholeness. She reflected it back to you. And that's the part you couldn't see because you were too deep in the illusion. You thought her attention meant healing. You thought her smile meant purpose. But it was all projection. She wasn't your missing piece. She was a mirror you used to avoid looking inward. And that's where the trap begins. Because the more you chase her, the further you drift from yourself. Every compliment you give to earn her love, every sacrifice you make to keep her calm, every opinion you swallow just to stay chosen, you're not loving her. You're abandoning yourself. And when it all falls apart, when she leaves, when she withdraws, when the energy shifts, and you feel like you've been gutted, it's not because the woman disappeared. It's because the version of you that only existed in her presence died with her absence. That's not love. That's emotional dependency, wrapped in a childhood myth. Aristotle didn't fall for that. He didn't decorate his pain with poetry. He studied nature, and he saw something brutal. The woman was never your savior. She was your reflection. And if you don't build yourself without her, you'll keep vanishing inside every woman who shows you your worth. You didn't love her. You needed her. You told yourself it was love, but it wasn't. It was emotional dependence. You needed her, not because of who she was, but because of who you became in her presence. Her smile made you feel seen. Her touch made you feel safe. Her voice gave you meaning. But it wasn't her you were addicted to. It was the feeling she gave you, a reflection of value you didn't know how to generate for yourself. That's not connection. That's submission. And you submitted in silence. You changed how you spoke. You softened your truth. You walked on emotional eggshells just to preserve the feeling she gave you, not her love, your illusion, because deep down, you weren't looking for truth. You were looking for comfort, and she became your comfort source, your medicine, your mirror. That's how she gained power, not by stealing it, but because you handed it over, not because she was cruel, not because she demanded it, but because the part of you that never learned to feel worthy alone was begging for something, anything, to reflect it back. And when she did, you were hooked. And once you're hooked, everything you do becomes reaction. You start chasing her attention like oxygen. You start reading her energy like scripture. You make her smile your reward, her silence your punishment, and you lose yourself trying to keep what was never yours to begin with. She didn't love you more. She owned more of you, because every time she validated your worth, you gave up a little more of your identity to keep the high going. She didn't take your identity. You traded it for a feeling she gave you. You told yourself it was romance, but it was reprogramming. You became addicted to the version of yourself that only existed when she approved of you. And the moment she stopped, you didn't just feel rejected, you felt erased, because your identity wasn't rooted in you. It was rooted in her gaze, her attention, her warmth, and that's the cost of emotional dependence. You forget who you are, unless she reminds you. Aristotle would have called it what it is: imbalance. A man who can't breathe unless she's smiling is a man who no longer exists on his own terms, and no woman can truly love a man who needs her to feel alive. What Aristotle actually said about women, when Aristotle said, "The female is a mutilated male," he wasn't being cruel. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't attacking women. He was observing function. You hear that line today and you flinch because you were taught to hear with emotion, not comprehension. But Aristotle didn't live in fantasies. He didn't wrap truth in softness. He looked at biology without apology, and what he saw was this: men and women are not equal copies of each other. They are strategic opposites built by nature to fulfill very different roles. He wasn't saying women are broken. He was saying they're different, designed by nature to adapt, not to initiate. Because in nature, the male creates. He builds, penetrates, seeds. The female receives, nurtures, responds. It's not romantic. It's not poetic. It's biological. And biology doesn't care about your feelings. It only cares about survival. Aristotle studied that. He saw that man projects. He moves outward. He forces reality to conform to his will. He builds cities, systems, civilizations. And woman, she adapts. She adjusts to the conditions. Not because she's passive, but because that's how nature equipped her to survive. She becomes what the environment demands. She mirrors what works. She shapes herself not to express identity, but to preserve advantage. That's not weakness. It's evolution. But here's where men fail. They think she changes to love them, to connect, to bond. She doesn't. She changes to survive them. That's the key line. She doesn't change to fit you. She changes to survive you. If you crave affection, she becomes soft. If you fear loneliness, she becomes present. If you chase peace, she becomes gentle. But that doesn't mean it's real. It means it's functional. Her behavior is a strategy, not a confession. And if you don't see that, you'll keep falling for what's being reflected back at you instead of facing what's actually inside her. That's what Aristotle was trying to say. Not that women are defective men, but that women are nature's most adaptive instrument. And if you don't understand how adaptation works, you'll think love is devotion when it's really survival. You'll think her warmth is truth when it's really response. And you'll spend your life chasing a performance while calling it connection. Her softness might be strategy. You think she's soft, gentle, naturally nurturing. You think her affection is unconditional. But here's what you don't see. Her softness might not be her nature. It might be her strategy. Not because she's evil, not because she's scheming, but because she's wired to survive. Women grow up learning one thing quickly. Power isn't given, it's felt. She doesn't get to dominate through force. She learns to control through response. She watches you. She senses your energy, your hunger, your insecurities, your emotional appetite. She can feel if you crave love, if you're aching to be understood, if you've been starving to feel accepted your whole life. And she becomes what you crave. She shapes her tone. She softens her eyes. She wraps her voice in calm. She gives you just enough warmth to make you lean in, but never enough to make you stop chasing. It's not malicious. It's instinct. You're not being manipulated. You're being read, because she doesn't need to dominate you to gain control. She just needs to reflect the emotion you've been missing, the approval you've been dying for, the softness your inner chaos has been craving. That's the key line. She doesn't need to control you. She just needs to feel what you crave and reflect it. That's the trap, because now you don't see her. You see a projection of your own emotional hunger. You chase her warmth like it's salvation. You open up more. You become emotionally loyal to someone you barely even know because she gave you a moment of soothing. And once she senses you're hooked, once she sees that her softness has become your oxygen, she doesn't need to say much. She doesn't need to pull away dramatically. She just reduces the warmth by 10%, a little colder, a little busier, a little less available. And you panic. You think you did something wrong. You chase harder. You try to get her back even though she never left. She just recalibrated the dosage. This is not a woman being manipulative. This is a woman using emotional adaptation as survival. You're interpreting it as love, but she's testing to see if you're still hungry, and most men are. They keep returning to the same cycle, mistaking emotional performance for emotional truth. And every time you chase that softness, you lose another part of yourself because you weren't responding to a real connection. You were reacting to a reflection. You gave her the map to your soul. You thought you were building intimacy. You thought you were creating a bond. You thought your openness made you strong. But every compliment, every late-night confession, every secret you shared trying to connect wasn't building closeness. It was building a map. You gave her the blueprint to your soul, not because she demanded it, but because you believed that being vulnerable would make you lovable, that if you showed her your deepest fears, your childhood wounds, your emotional pain, she would hold you tighter. But she wasn't holding you. She was learning you, learning how you respond to praise, learning which words make you feel worthy, learning where your walls drop and why, learning how much of yourself you'd give away just to feel safe in her gaze. She didn't take control. She learned your pattern. You didn't fall into love. You fell into emotional exposure, and you told yourself this was healthy, that you were growing, that this was what real connection looked like. But it wasn't connection. It was dependency, because the more of yourself you gave her, the more she could shape your behavior without ever raising her voice. She'd compliment your vulnerability, not to celebrate it, but to measure how much you needed that validation. She'd tell you how beautiful it is when a man opens up, while silently noting exactly how much power she had the moment you did. Not all women do this with intent. Many don't even know they're doing it, but the result is the same. She now holds emotional leverage, and you gave it to her, piece by piece, sentence by sentence, confession by confession, not because she asked, but because you were desperate to be enough. That's the line you need to hear. She didn't break you. You broke yourself, handing her every part of you, hoping to be enough. And now, she doesn't need to argue. She doesn't need to pull away. All she has to do is pause, and your entire world tilts. Because when she's silent, you're not just afraid of losing her. You're afraid of losing the version of you that only exists when she sees you. Burn the myth. Rebuild the man. You think you're heartbroken, but you're not. You're in withdrawal from the illusion, from the fantasy, from the version of her you built just to feel like you mattered. You don't miss her. You miss who you thought you were when she was around. And now that she's gone, you don't know who you are anymore. That's not heartbreak. That's ego collapse. Because she didn't stop loving you. She stopped playing the role. The performance ended. The mirror cracked, and you were left staring at a man whose identity only existed under the glow of her attention. It wasn't love. It was borrowed worth. You felt valuable because she reflected value back to you. You felt seen because she echoed the version of you you were trying to become. And now that reflection is gone. And so is your sense of self. You're not grieving connection. You're grieving a mask. That's what hurts. That's what shakes you, not the woman, the story she was holding together. And if you don't burn that story, you'll spend the rest of your life trying to rebuild it with someone new. Same fantasy, different face. But Aristotle didn't live in fantasy. He lived in form, in function, in truth. He understood that the world doesn't bend to your feelings, and that no woman, no matter how beautiful, soft, or nurturing, can give a man what he refuses to build in himself. Because real masculine rebirth doesn't start with affection. It starts with abandonment. When she pulls away, when the reflection dies, when you're left alone in the ashes of your own projections, that's when the real work begins. That's when you begin to rebuild. But this time, you don't rebuild the illusion. You don't chase another mirror. You build the man. Here's how. Identity separation. She was never your purpose. She was a chapter, not your character. You must extract who you are from who she made you feel like. Emotional discipline. Stop explaining your pain to people who benefit from your confusion. Stop chasing closure in the very place you lost yourself. Start holding your ground when everything inside you wants to collapse. Ego burial. That version of you that thought love would complete you, that man has to die, not soften. Die. Because as long as he's alive, you'll keep betraying yourself for the sake of emotional oxygen. And here's the part most men never see. You never really lost her. You lost the illusion she was holding together. And now you have a choice. Cling to the myth or burn it. Chase the same dream in another woman or bury it and build from truth. Because the fire you're in now, it's not punishment. It's a forge. And the man who walks out of it is no longer chasing affection. He's building himself from the inside out with no mirror, no mask, no more pretending, only presence. Stillness is power. Not chasing is control. When she withdraws, you panic. That's how it starts. She gets quiet. She pulls back. She stops texting the same way, stops looking at you with the same warmth, and your nervous system lights up like an alarm. You don't know what happened, so you chase the feeling. You try harder. You become sweeter. You overcompensate, not because you love her, but because you want the emotional order back. You want the warmth, the validation, the version of her that made you feel grounded. But here's the trap. The more you chase that emotional balance, the more control you give away, because now she knows. All she has to do is pull away and you'll bend. You'll change how you speak. You'll shift your tone. You'll shape your energy just to bring back her smile. She doesn't need to demand anything. She doesn't need to raise her voice. She simply changes the emotional temperature and watches what you'll do to fix it. That's how most men get trained. But Aristotle, he didn't bend. He observed. He didn't react to every change in tone. He didn't beg for emotional peace. He studied reality without flinching because he knew stillness confuses control systems, because stillness reveals truth. When you don't react to her withdrawal, you break the cycle. You stop rewarding performance. You stop chasing softness. You stop dancing for emotional stability. And what she's left with is a man who holds his ground, whether she's warm or cold, open or closed, affectionate or distant. That stillness, it's not passivity, it's dominance through discipline. Because when you don't flinch, you create tension. And in that tension, she has to reveal something real, not strategy, not adaptation, but truth. That's why stillness is dangerous. She's not afraid of anger. She's afraid of a man who doesn't flinch, a man who doesn't beg for connection, who doesn't react to silence, who doesn't abandon himself just to bring back her validation. That man, he can't be manipulated, not because he's cold, but because he's anchored. So the next time she pulls back, don't collapse, don't explain, don't chase. Stay still, watch what happens, because power isn't found in emotional reaction. It's found in the space after the storm, where she realizes she's not controlling the frame anymore. You are. You were never chosen. You were trained to need her. You keep saying she chose you, but she didn't. You were never chosen. You were trained to believe that her approval meant peace, that her softness meant love, that her presence meant purpose. But the truth, she didn't complete you. She just temporarily suspended your pain. You were never healed by her. You were distracted from the silence inside you, from the boy who still thought he had to earn worth to be wanted, from the man who didn't know who he was without her gaze. You didn't fall in love. You fell into dependency. She didn't make you feel alive. She made you forget that you felt dead without her. And that illusion, it felt safe. It felt romantic. It felt like destiny. But it wasn't destiny. It was emotional programming. Aristotle saw through that thousands of years ago. He never said women were the enemy. He never told men to reject love. He warned them not to project, because a man who hasn't faced himself will turn any woman into a mirror and then call the reflection truth. That's where you went wrong. You gave her a role. You wrote her script. You decided who she was based on what you wanted to feel. And when she changed, when she withdrew, when the reflection cracked, you didn't lose her. You lost the illusion, the dream, the emotional drug, the fantasy that she could fix what you refused to face in yourself. And now, you're here. The performance is over. The mask is gone. The version of you that only existed in her light has disappeared with her absence. So what do? You either chase that feeling again, find a new face, a new mirror, fall back into the loop, or you do the one thing most men never do. Let the illusion burn, not soften. Burn. You destroy the fantasy that she was your missing piece. You erase the lie that said love means bending, hiding, performing. You stop worshiping her attention like it defines your masculinity, because now you know she didn't heal you. She distracted you. She didn't see you. She reflected your own desire to be seen, and that's not her fault. That's your awakening. Aristotle wasn't trying to make you cold. He was trying to make you clear, and clarity begins when fantasy ends. So here it is, your choice. Keep chasing the woman who gives you back a version of yourself you haven't built alone, or kill the myth and build a man who doesn't vanish without her, because you were never truly loved. Not by her, not by anyone, until you stopped needing it. And that man, the one who no longer flinches in silence, who no longer bends to feel seen, who no longer trades himself for affection, that man is free. You were never weak. You were just unconscious. And now you see. And once you see, you never go back. You bury the fantasy. You mourn the illusion. You face the part of yourself that thought love had to be earned through disappearance. And when you rise different. You stop being a character in her story. You become the author of your own. Subscribe if you're done performing for love. Subscribe if you're done chasing the lie. Subscribe if you're ready to build the man she was never meant to complete, because this is the end of illusion and the beginning of you.